My name is Lillian, and at 32 years old, I never expected my life to take such a dramatic turn. I built my tech company from nothing into a multi-million-dollar business while watching my traditional wealthy family secretly struggle financially. When my wife Kate became pregnant, I thought my family might finally accept us. I was wrong. That dinner at Le Bistro changed everything. Before I tell you how my family tried to humiliate my pregnant wife, drop a comment where you're watching from and subscribe if you want to see more stories about standing up for the people you love. Growing up in Beacon Hill, Boston's most affluent neighborhood, came with expectations. Our family name dated back generations, with a legacy of old money and even older values. The Harrington estate stood as a testament to wealth that predated my birth, with its colonial architecture and perfectly manicured gardens tended by staff who had worked for our family longer than I had been alive. From the outside, we appeared to be the perfect representation of American aristocracy. My mother, Diane, now 59, maintained appearances with the precision of a military general. Her social calendar functioned as the family's constitution, dictating our movements, our wardrobes, and most importantly, whom we associated with. She hosted charity galas, not out of genuine concern for causes, but because that's what families like ours did. Her personal appearance remained flawless, from her perfectly highlighted blonde hair to her exclusively designer wardrobe. My father, Richard, 62, was supposedly a financial titan who rarely spoke about emotions, but frequently discussed market trends. He spent most of my childhood behind closed doors in his study or on business trips. When present, he existed as a distant figure who evaluated my accomplishments with slight nods rather than praise. What I didn't know until I was in my 20s was that his investment firm had been hemorrhaging money for years, a secret he kept buried beneath expensive suits and membership fees at exclusive clubs. Then there was my sister Amanda, 35 and seemingly perfect. She married Gregory Hamilton, heir to a shipping fortune, in what mother called the social event of the season. Amanda embraced our family's values wholeheartedly, measuring her worth through social connections and material possessions. She followed our mother's blueprint for success: marry well, maintain appearances, and never reveal weakness. I was always the outlier. While Amanda attended cotillion classes and joined the right sororities, I spent my time taking apart computers and building websites. My interest in technology confused my parents, who viewed it as an unsuitable hobby for a young lady of my standing. When I started my own tech company after college, instead of pursuing law or marrying someone from mother's approved list of suitors, the family tension escalated. The true breaking point came when I came out to my family at 25. Mother treated it as a personal attack on her parenting. Father retreated further into his study. Amanda worried about how it would affect her social standing. When I brought Kate home for Christmas 3 years ago, Mother arranged the seating so we were at opposite ends of the table. I met Kate at a genuine charity event I was sponsoring for LGBTQ youth. Unlike the hollow social functions my family attended, this event aimed to provide real support for vulnerable teens. Kate worked as the organization's fundraising coordinator. She walked up to thank me for my company's donation, and I was immediately struck by her warmth and authentic passion for helping others. With her curly auburn hair and freckles across her nose, she wasn't the polished socialite type my mother would have chosen, but her intelligence and compassion captivated me instantly. Our relationship progressed naturally, without the calculation that characterized my family's social interactions. We moved in together after a year, and I proposed on our second anniversary. Kate accepted with tears and laughter, saying she'd never met anyone who made her feel so completely loved. When we announced our engagement, my family responded with tight smiles and backhanded congratulations. Mother asked if we might consider a private ceremony rather than a public statement. Father nodded vaguely and returned to his newspaper. Amanda questioned whether Kate understood the responsibilities of joining our family. None of them attended our wedding. The pregnancy announcement 8 months ago met with similar disapproval. Mother suggested adoption might be more appropriate. Amanda wondered aloud how we would explain the situation to her children. Father said nothing at all. What none of them knew was that by this point, I had become the silent financial backbone of the entire family. It started 5 years ago when Father came to my office, something he'd never done before. His face looked drawn, his usual confidence replaced by something I'd never seen: desperation. His investment firm had made a series of catastrophic decisions, and they were months away from complete collapse. He asked for a loan just enough to weather the storm. I agreed, believing it would be temporary, but the storm never passed. His business continued to fail, and my loans became regular infusions that supported not just his business, but our entire family's lifestyle. I paid the mortgage on the family estate. I funded Amanda's extravagant wardrobe and vacations. I covered Mother's social club memberships and charity donations. I even financed my brother-in-law Gregory's recent promotion by investing heavily in his family's shipping business. None of them knew. Father maintained the illusion that his business had recovered. They all believed they were living on his success, never questioning why the money continued to flow despite economic downturns. My success in the tech industry became a family footnote rather than its financial foundation. And somehow that arrangement worked for me too. Despite their treatment of me and Kate, some part of me couldn't bear to see the family name tarnished, or my parents forced to downsize their lives at their age. That is, it worked until that dinner at Le Bistro changed everything. The celebration dinner for Gregory's promotion happened to fall during Kate's 7th month of pregnancy. She had been experiencing difficult symptoms with persistent nausea and swelling that made even simple outings challenging. The morning of the dinner, she sat on the edge of our bed looking uncertain. "Are you sure you want to go tonight?" I asked, watching her rub her lower back. "We can send a gift and your congratulations instead." Kate shook her head, her auburn curls bouncing slightly. "No, I want to try again with your family. This is important. If we're going to have a baby, I want them to be part of our lives somehow." Her optimism touched me, though I didn't share it. In 7 years, my family had never shown any real acceptance of our relationship. The pregnancy had only widened the gap. Still, I admired Kate's persistence and goodwill. She believed people could change if given enough chances. "Gregory's promotion is a big deal in your family," she continued, carefully standing up. "Being there shows support." I didn't have the heart to tell her I had essentially purchased Gregory's promotion by investing $2 million in his family's shipping business, with the explicit request that they create a vice president position for him. It was part of my ongoing effort to maintain family harmony and appearances, even at significant personal cost. "If you're feeling up to it," I said, helping her with her shoes since bending had become difficult, "but promise you'll tell me if you need to leave early." She nodded, then grimaced as the baby kicked visibly against her dress. "Your daughter already has strong opinions. Maybe she'll stand up to your mother better than I do." I laughed, placing my hand on her stomach to feel our active child. These quiet moments reinforced what really mattered in my life, regardless of my family's approval. As we prepared for the evening, I received 3 separate texts from my mother with instructions. Wear something appropriate, arrive on time, and bring a suitable gift. Not once did she acknowledge Kate would be attending or inquire about her health. I deleted the messages without responding. The reservation at Le Bistro reflected my mother's preference for exclusivity over comfort. Boston's most prestigious French restaurant had a 3-month waiting list, but of course Mother had secured a prime table. What she didn't know was that I was a silent investor in the restaurant, which explained why the Harrington family never seemed to have trouble getting reservations. We arrived at the restaurant precisely at 7. The maitre d' recognized me immediately, but maintained professional discretion. "Ms. Harrington, we're delighted to have you and your wife this evening. Your family is already seated." The rest of the family had indeed arrived early, something my mother insisted upon. They occupied a large round table near the center of the dining room, perfectly positioned to be seen by Boston's elite. My father sat reviewing the wine list, while my mother surveyed the room, noting who might observe their celebration. Amanda sat with her phone out despite the restaurant's unstated preference against visible technology. Gregory, a tall man with the overconfident posture of someone who had never truly earned his position, was speaking loudly about market projections. Mother spotted us first, her smile freezing slightly when she saw Kate's visibly pregnant form. She recovered quickly, years of social training taking over. "Lillian, darling, you're exactly on time," she said, ear-kissing near my cheek. She barely nodded at Kate. "Catherine, you decided to come after all." "Wouldn't miss it," Kate replied warmly, either missing or ignoring the coldness in my mother's greeting. "Congratulations, Gregory. Vice President of International Operations sounds impressive." Gregory straightened his tie. "Well, it's been a long time coming. The board finally recognized my potential." I suppressed a smile, knowing the board had recognized my money more than his potential, but maintained my supportive expression. Amanda barely looked up from her phone as we sat down. "Kate, you look so pregnant today." 7 months along now, Kate answered cheerfully. "She's very active." My mother's eyebrows rose. "You're having a girl." I nodded. "We found out last month." "Well, Mother adjusted her napkin. I suppose another female in the family is fine, though a boy would have been nice for carrying on traditions. Kate squeezed my hand under the table. I could feel her tension despite her outward calm. As the waiter approached, Amanda dominated the conversation with details of the vacation they were planning to celebrate Gregory's promotion. The 2-week yacht trip through the Mediterranean would cost approximately $180,000, a fact she mentioned repeatedly while showing photos of the vessel on her phone. Of course we're bringing the children's nanny along, she said, scrolling through images. One simply can't enjoy Santorini properly with children underfoot. My mother nodded approvingly, while my father continued studying the wine list, occasionally checking his watch. I wondered if he was calculating how long until he could reasonably leave without social repercussions. Speaking of children, Kate ventured, trying to join the conversation, we've been working on the nursery. I'd love your input on the design, Amanda, since you have such beautiful taste. My sister looked up, genuinely surprised at being consulted. For a moment, I saw an opening, a potential connection. Then Gregory interrupted. The market in Asia is really where the focus should be. My new position will be instrumental in expanding our presence there. And just like that, the conversation moved away from any personal connection. As we ordered drinks, I noticed Kate declining wine with a protective hand over her belly. My mother's slight frown didn't escape my attention. The tension was building, but I still had no idea how catastrophically the evening would unfold. The white tablecloths at Le Bistro gleamed under the sophisticated lighting, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Crystal glasses caught the light, and the gentle hum of conversation from surrounding tables maintained the restaurant's reputation for civilized dining. Our waiter, dressed impeccably in black and white, distributed leather-bound menus with practiced precision. This evening we have several specials. He began, his French accent subtle but authentic. A seared foie gras with black truffle reduction, Dover sole meunière prepared tableside, and a 30-day dry-aged Côte de Boeuf for two. My father nodded appreciatively at the beef option, while my mother examined the regular menu with the scrutiny she applied to all aspects of her life. Amanda was already checking her social media again, occasionally showing Gregory posts from friends she considered important. Kate opened her menu and immediately paled slightly. I recognized the look from previous pregnancy-related nausea episodes. Are you okay? I whispered, leaning closer to her. She nodded but swallowed hard. Just some of the food descriptions. The smell of certain foods has been triggering lately. I subtly moved the bread basket away from her, knowing the yeasty scent had bothered her recently. We can step outside for some air if you need to. I'm fine, she insisted, taking a small sip of water. Across the table, Amanda noticed our exchange and raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem with the menu? They do accommodate simpler palates if necessary. The condescension in her tone wasn't subtle. Kate smiled politely anyway. Everything looks wonderful. My appetite has just been unpredictable lately. My mother lowered her menu. Surely you knew we were coming to dinner. Couldn't you have prepared appropriately? Perhaps some crackers beforehand? Mother? I interjected. Pregnancy nausea isn't something that can be scheduled or prepared for. She pressed her lips together in disapproval, but returned to her menu without further comment. When the waiter returned for our orders, the real trouble began. My father ordered the aged steak rare with all the accompanying sides. My mother selected the Dover sole with very specific preparation instructions. Amanda chose the foie gras appetizer and the smallest entree available, making a comment about watching her figure. Gregory ordered the most expensive item on the menu, a seafood tower, followed by the chef's tasting menu with wine pairings. When it came to Kate's turn, she hesitated. Could I possibly get the simple roast chicken but without the garlic butter, and maybe some plain steamed vegetables instead of the potato gratin? The waiter nodded. Of course, madame. We can accommodate that easily. My mother's face tightened almost imperceptibly. Really, Catherine? Why bother coming to Le Bistro if you're going to order something so basic they're known for their French cuisine? Kate flushed slightly. I'm sorry, my stomach has been sensitive with the pregnancy. I'm trying to avoid rich foods that might trigger nausea. Amanda exchanged a look with my mother that I recognized from childhood. It was the look they shared when they believed someone was failing to meet family standards. If you can't enjoy proper food, Amanda said, examining her manicure, perhaps dining out isn't appropriate during your condition. I felt heat rising to my face, but Kate placed a calming hand on my arm. She had always been better at maintaining composure than I was. I'm enjoying the experience and the company, she said diplomatically. The food is secondary. My father, perhaps sensing tension, attempted a rare social intervention. The chicken here is actually quite good. Nicholas, their head chef, trained in Lyon. This momentary support might have diffused the situation if the waiter hadn't chosen that moment to pass by with another table's order. The aroma of sizzling steak and caramelized onions wafted across our table, and Kate suddenly turned a concerning shade of green. "Excuse me," she whispered, standing quickly. "I need to visit the ladies' room." As she hurried away, Amanda sighed dramatically. "This is why I scheduled my children's births around important social seasons. Being pregnant during Gregory's promotion dinner would have been completely inconvenient." My mother nodded in agreement. "In my day, women were more discreet about these matters. We didn't make our conditions everyone else's problem." I stared at them in disbelief. "Her condition is our future child. Your future granddaughter." Neither seemed particularly moved by this point. Gregory checked his watch impatiently. "Will this delay our orders?" "I have calls to make later this evening." When Kate returned a few minutes later, she looked pale but composed. She sat down carefully, taking small sips of water. "Are you all right?" I asked, genuinely concerned. "Yes, just needed a moment. I'm sorry for the interruption." My mother's patience had evidently reached its limit. She placed her napkin on the table with deliberate precision. "Catherine, this is meant to be a celebration for Gregory and Amanda. Your pregnancy issues are becoming disruptive. Perhaps it would be better if you took your meal elsewhere." The table fell silent. Even my father looked up from his wineglass. "Elsewhere," I repeated, certain I had misunderstood. My mother waved a hand dismissively. "The restroom has a nice lounge area. She could eat there without the risk of another episode. It would be more comfortable for everyone." I felt as though I'd been slapped. "You want my wife to eat dinner in a bathroom?" "Don't be so dramatic, Lillian. I'm suggesting the lounge area, not a stall." She turned to Kate directly. "Pregnant women don't belong at nice tables. It makes others uncomfortable watching you struggle." Amanda nodded in agreement. "She's making everyone uncomfortable with her condition. This is supposed to be our perfect celebration dinner." I looked to my father for some intervention, but he studied his water glass with sudden interest. Gregory was examining something on his phone, pretending not to hear the conversation. Kate sat perfectly still, her face a mask of composure, though her eyes betrayed her hurt. Under the table, her hand trembled slightly in mine. I looked around the table at my family. These people whose lifestyle I had been secretly supporting for years. These people who couldn't show the smallest kindness to the woman I loved who was carrying our child. These people who believed themselves superior, based on a financial foundation that I alone was maintaining. In that moment, everything became absolutely clear. I caught Kate's eye and smiled. Not the tense social smile I usually wore at family functions, but a genuine smile of someone who has finally seen the truth. I squeezed her hand gently and stood up. "Kate, darling, would you like to leave?" Relief washed over her face. "Yes, please." Without another word to my family, I helped Kate to her feet, collected her purse, and led her away from the table. Behind us, I could hear my mother's hushed angry whispers and Amanda's indignant commentary, but I didn't look back. As we passed the maitre d', I paused briefly. "Please bring the cheque for the entire party to my father. And Henri, this will be the last time the Harrington family uses my name for reservations." His subtle nod acknowledged my meaning without requiring further explanation. Professional to the end. Outside in the cool evening air, Kate finally let her composure crack. Tears spilled down her cheeks as I helped her into our car. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I ruined their celebration." I took her face gently between my hands. "You didn't ruin anything. They did. And it's time they learned there are consequences for treating us this way." As we drove home in silence, my mind was already formulating the next steps that would forever change my family's understanding of their perfect world. The ride home from Le Bistro passed in emotional silence, broken only by Kate's occasional sniffles. Street lights cast rhythmic shadows across her face, highlighting the tears she tried to discreetly wipe away. When we pulled into our driveway, neither of us immediately moved to exit the car. "Are you okay?" I asked, reaching for her hand. "Not just emotionally, but physically too. That kind of stress isn't good for you or the baby." Kate placed both hands protectively over her stomach. "I think we're all right. She's still kicking." She attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Apparently she takes after you strong, even when things get tough." Inside our home, the contrast with the cold atmosphere of the restaurant couldn't have been more striking. We'd designed our space together, blending Kate's warm, inviting aesthetic with my more modern preferences. The nearly completed nursery down the hall represented our future, painted in gentle yellows, with hand-selected furniture we'd spent weekends choosing together. Kate settled on our sofa, slipping off her shoes with relief. Her ankles had swollen noticeably during our brief dinner. I brought her a cup of the ginger tea she'd been drinking throughout her pregnancy and sat beside her, my thoughts still swirling with calculated plans and simmering anger. "I can't believe they would treat you that way," I said finally. "Actually, that's not true. I can believe it, and that's what makes it worse. I've been enabling their behavior for years." Kate looked at me questioningly. "What do you mean, enabling?" I'd never fully explained the extent of my financial support to my family. It had seemed simpler to keep those worlds separate, to let Kate believe my family maintained their own lifestyle while we built ours independently. Now that separation seemed like yet another concession I'd made to preserve an illusion that didn't deserve protection. "My father's business has been failing for years," I explained. "He came to me for help 5 years ago, and I've been supporting the entire family ever since. The house, their lifestyle, even Gregory's so-called promotion, it all comes from me." Kate's eyes widened. "They don't know." "No, Father's too proud to admit it to Mother and Amanda, and I never corrected their assumption that his business recovered. I guess part of me hoped that if I supported them enough, they might eventually accept us, accept you." I shook my head at my own naivety. Instead, I just funded their ability to keep treating us poorly. "What are you going to do?" Kate asked quietly. I took a deep breath. "I'm cutting them off. Not out of spite, but because continuing to support them while they disrespect you, disrespect us and our child would be wrong. It would teach our daughter that it's okay to let people treat you badly as long as they're family." Kate nodded slowly. "That's a big decision. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." I reached for my phone. "I need to make some calls tonight before I lose my resolve." The first call was to my personal accountant, Marcus, who had long questioned my financial support of my family. Despite the late hour, he answered promptly. "Marcus, I need you to stop all transfers to the Harrington family accounts effective immediately. Cancel all recurring payments, credit cards, everything." His silence spoke volumes before he finally responded. "May I say it's about time." "What prompted this decision, if you don't mind my asking?" "Let's just say I finally recognized the difference between supporting family and enabling toxic behavior. After providing specific instructions about various accounts and arrangements, I made my second call to my attorney, Janice, who helped me navigate the more complex aspects of disentangling my finances from my family's. By midnight, the framework was in place. Credit cards would begin declining by morning. Automatic payments for the family estate's mortgage, utilities, and staff would cease. The significant monthly deposits into my father's business account would stop. Throughout these calls, Kate sat beside me, offering silent support. When I finally set down my phone, she looked at me with concern. "How are you feeling?" I considered the question carefully. "Lighter somehow. Like I've set down a burden I didn't realize was so heavy." I placed my hand on her stomach, feeling our daughter move. "But I'm also sad. This isn't how I wanted things to be with them." Kate leaned her head against my shoulder. "Family is complicated. You tried to maintain those relationships even when they made it difficult. There's no shame in finally drawing a line. The hardest part is knowing they'll blame you," I admitted. "They'll say you turned me against them rather than accepting responsibility for their own actions." "Let them think what they want," Kate replied with unexpected firmness. "I know the truth, and so do you. That's what matters." She yawned suddenly, pregnancy fatigue catching up with her. "Our daughter will know the truth too. She'll grow up understanding that respect is earned, not demanded, regardless of blood ties." As Kate prepared for bed, my phone began buzzing with notifications. The first financial dominoes were already falling. A text from my sister, "Something's wrong with my credit card. Fix it." A voicemail from my mother about a declined payment at her salon. No questions about why we'd left the dinner, just demands for immediate financial resolution. I silenced my phone and joined Kate in our bedroom. Tomorrow would bring a storm, but tonight I needed to rest and prepare. As I curled protectively around Kate and our unborn child, I felt a sense of peace despite the conflict ahead. For the first time in years, my actions aligned completely with my values, and that alignment brought unexpected comfort. "I love you," I whispered to Kate, unsure if she was still awake. "Both of you." Her sleepy murmur in response carried me into dreams that for once weren't shadowed by family obligations and unspoken resentments. 3 days after the disastrous dinner at Le Bistro, my phone had accumulated 47 missed calls and over 60 unread text messages. I had responded to none of them following my attorney's advice to maintain communication blackout until the family emergency meeting scheduled for that afternoon. The gathering had been my father's idea conveyed through his personal assistant, who had called my office rather than my cell phone. This small detail confirmed my suspicion that he at least understood the magnitude of what was happening. The location, my parents' home in Beacon Hill, represented their last attempt to maintain control of the narrative. "Are you sure you don't want me to come with you?" Kate asked as I prepared to leave. She sat in our living room armchair, her feet elevated on an ottoman to help with swelling. "Absolutely not," I replied firmly. "I won't subject you or our baby to that kind of stress again. Besides," I added with a grim smile, "this conversation needs to happen without distractions. They need to understand that this is about their behavior, not about you." Kate nodded though concern shadowed her eyes. "Just remember to stay calm. Stress isn't good for you either." I kissed her goodbye, promising to call as soon as the meeting concluded, and drove to my childhood home with a strange sense of detachment. The estate looked exactly as it always had, imposing perfectly maintained a monument to old money and social standing. The gardener was tending to the immaculate rose bushes, likely unaware that his next paycheck would not arrive. The housekeeper, Mrs. Sullivan, opened the door before I could ring the bell. Her expression held more warmth than I usually encountered in this house. "They're waiting in the main sitting room, Miss Lillian," she said, taking my coat. "It's been rather tense this morning." I thanked her, making a mental note to ensure she received fair severance pay. She had been with the family for decades and didn't deserve to suffer from my parents' financial irresponsibility. The sitting room presented a tableau of barely contained panic. My father stood by the fireplace, his normally commanding posture diminished. He looked older than he had at dinner just days ago, the lines around his eyes deeper. My mother perched on the edge of her favourite antique settee, her phone clutched in one hand, a tumbler of what appeared to be bourbon in the other, despite the early hour. Amanda paced near the windows, her designer heels clicking aggressively against the hardwood floors. Gregory sat slightly apart, his expression suggesting he'd rather be anywhere else. All conversation ceased when I entered, 4 pairs of eyes fixed on me with emotions ranging from anger to fear to confusion. "Finally," Amanda snapped, stopping her pacing. "Do you have any idea what's been happening? My cards are all declined. The spa called about my account. Even my housekeeper says her check bounced." My mother took a sharp drink before speaking. "Whatever point you're trying to make with this childish financial prank needs to stop immediately. Your father has important clients to consider, and Amanda has social obligations." I remained standing, declining to take a seat despite my father's gestured invitation to do so. "This isn't a prank, it's a correction of an unhealthy arrangement that should have ended years ago." "What arrangement?" Amanda demanded. "What are you talking about?" My father cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should discuss this calmly." "Yes," I agreed. "Let's be calm and honest for once." I turned to my mother and sister. "Father's investment firm has been failing for years. He first came to me for help 5 years ago, and I've been supporting this entire family ever since." The silence that followed was absolute. My mother stared at me, then at my father, her expression transitioning from dismissal to horror as she realized I was telling the truth. "That's impossible," Amanda whispered, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "Daddy's business is fine. We would know if it wasn't." My father sank into the nearest chair, suddenly looking every day of his 62 years. "Lillian is telling the truth. My last successful year was 2019. Since then, Lillian's contributions have maintained everything: the house, the staff, our lifestyle." My mother's hand trembled so violently that bourbon sloshed over the rim of her glass. "Richard, is this some kind of sick joke? Are you saying we've been taking charity from her?" The way she said "her" communicated volumes about how she still viewed me, despite my financial support. Not as a successful businesswoman, not even as a daughter, but as some kind of deviant who had betrayed family expectations by loving Kate. "It wasn't charity," I corrected evenly. "It was family supporting family. That's what you always taught us, isn't it, Mother? That family comes first. I believed that. I still do. But family means respect and acceptance, not just financial dependence." Amanda collapsed onto the sofa, her fashionable outfit suddenly seeming like a costume rather than an identity. "I don't understand. If Daddy's business has been failing, where did all the money come from? My allowance, the children's private schools, our vacations?" "From me," I said simply. "My company has been very successful." Gregory, who had been silent until now, suddenly looked more interested. "How successful exactly?" I ignored his question, focusing instead on my family. I was willing to continue supporting you all indefinitely. Despite how you've treated Kate, despite your disapproval of our marriage and our pregnancy, I still cared about maintaining this family. But what happened at Le Bistro crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. My mother's shock was transitioning to calculation. I recognized the expression from years of watching her navigate social difficulties. She was recalibrating, trying to find the correct approach to restore the status quo. "Darling," she began, her voice softening artificially, "if this is about some perceived slight to Catherine, I'm sure we can resolve it." Perhaps I was a bit insensitive about her condition, but you know how important Gregory's celebration was to Amanda. "Perceived slight," I repeated incredulously. "You told my pregnant wife to eat in a bathroom so she wouldn't ruin your perfect day. You said pregnant women don't belong at nice tables." "I didn't say bathroom," my mother countered defensively. "I said lounge area." "The lounge area of a bathroom is still a bathroom, Mother." Amanda interjected, her voice taking on the wheedling tone she had used since childhood to get her way. "Lily, you know how much we all have riding on our social connections. My children's school placements, Gregory's business relationships, Mother's committee positions. We can't just suddenly change our lifestyle. What would people think?" "That's not my problem anymore," I replied, surprised at how calm I felt. "You'll need to adjust your expectations to match your actual income, not the income you've been pretending to have." Gregory stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You can't just cut everyone off without warning because of one dinner that went badly. There are legal implications. Financial commitments have been made based on expected income." "Actually, I can," I stated firmly. "There is no legal obligation for me to support any of you. Every transfer I made was a gift properly documented by my accountant and attorney. As for commitments you've made, perhaps you should have confirmed the stability of your income source before spending money you didn't earn." My father, who had been quietly absorbing the conversation, finally spoke. "She's right. We have no claim to her money. She's been extraordinarily generous, and we've been—" He paused, seeming to search for the right word, ungrateful. This unexpected support from my father momentarily threw me off balance. In all our years of family dynamics, he had never directly contradicted my mother or supported me against her. My mother noticed it too. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "Richard, surely you're not taking her side in this extortion attempt." "It's not extortion, Diane," he replied wearily. "It's consequences. We've been living beyond our means on Lillian's generosity while continuing to criticize her life choices. That arrangement has ended as we should have expected it might." Amanda wasn't ready to concede. "So what happens now? We just lose everything because Lily's feelings got hurt, because her pregnant wife couldn't handle a nice restaurant." I felt my carefully maintained composure slipping. Kate handled the restaurant perfectly well. What she couldn't handle, what no one should have to handle, was being treated as less than human by people who claim to be family. I turned to address each of them directly. "I'm not doing this out of revenge. I'm doing this because continuing to financially enable your behavior would make me complicit in it. You've shown me repeatedly that you don't respect me, my wife, or the family we're creating. Why would I continue investing in relationships that only cause pain?" My mother stood suddenly, her social mask cracking to reveal genuine fury. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by humiliating us financially because we don't celebrate your lifestyle choices." I laughed without humor. "What exactly have you done for me? Mother criticized my career, rejected my wife, suggested my unborn daughter eat in a bathroom. Please enumerate the benefits of this relationship that I'm apparently taking for granted." She had no answer, and her silence spoke volumes. "I've instructed my attorney to create a small trust," I continued. "It will provide enough for basic living expenses, nothing more. The house will need to be sold, the staff let go, your social memberships terminated. You'll need to live within actual means rather than imagined ones. I guess." I looked at my watch, suddenly exhausted by the confrontation. "I should go. Kate will be wondering how this went." Amanda made one last desperate attempt. "You can't just leave us like this. What about my children, your niece and nephew?" "Your children will be fine," I assured her. "The trust will cover their education, but they might benefit from learning that status and appearance aren't the most important values in life. That's a lesson I had to learn on my own." As I moved toward the door, my father stood and approached me. The others watched in tense silence as he stopped before me, his expression more open than I could remember seeing it in years. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for everything." The simple apology, so unexpected and seemingly genuine, caught me off guard. I nodded acknowledgement, unable to fully process this shift in our relationship in the midst of everything else. "I need to go," I repeated, turning away from their collective shock, anger, and dawning realization. As I walked out of my childhood home, the weight of generations of expectations and judgments seemed to lift from my shoulders. The future remained uncertain, relationships damaged perhaps beyond repair, but for the first time I was walking away on my own terms with my own values intact. In my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine, allowing myself to feel the complex emotions of the confrontation. Then I took a deep breath, started the car, and drove home to Kate and the future we were building together. Over the following weeks, my family's carefully constructed world unraveled with surprising speed. The first public sign came when my mother's coveted charity gala committee position was quietly reassigned after her substantial annual donation failed to materialize. Amanda's social media posts abruptly shifted from exotic vacation photos to vague inspirational quotes about life's unexpected challenges. Gregory was suddenly working remotely after his company car was repossessed from his office parking lot. I observed these developments from a distance, maintaining my communication blackout except for necessary legal and financial discussions through intermediaries. Kate and I focused instead on preparing for our daughter's arrival, attending birthing classes, and completing the nursery that now featured a hand-painted mural of Boston's public garden where we'd had our first date. The first direct contact came 3 weeks after the family meeting, when my mother arrived unannounced at our front door. Through the security camera, I could see she had made an effort to maintain appearances despite the financial constraints. Her clothing, while not the latest designer pieces she typically favored, was carefully selected to suggest continued affluence. Kate, now approaching her 8th month and moving more slowly, looked at me questioningly. "Do you want to see her?" I considered refusing, but recognized this conversation would need to happen eventually. "Yes, but you don't have to be part of it if you don't want to." "I'll stay," Kate decided, settling herself comfortably on our living room sofa. "We're a family. We face things together." When I opened the door, my mother's practiced social smile faltered slightly at seeing Kate's obviously pregnant form behind me. She quickly recovered, straightening her shoulders in the way she always did before navigating difficult social situations. "Lillian, Catherine, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "It's Kate, not Catherine," I corrected, stepping aside to allow her entry. And yes, we were in the middle of something, but we can spare a few minutes. This small assertion of boundaries, so different from my previous pattern of accommodating her preferences, without comment, visibly unsettled her. She perched tentatively on an armchair, declining my perfunctory offer of tea or coffee. "I've come to discuss the current situation," she began formally. "Your father and I feel there may have been some miscommunication that has led to unnecessary family discord." I raised an eyebrow. "Miscommunication, that's an interesting interpretation of what happened." My mother adjusted her watch, a nervous habit I recognized from childhood. "Perhaps I expressed myself poorly at Le Bistro. If Kate, felt unwelcome, that certainly wasn't my intention." The insincerity was so transparent that I almost laughed. Kate, however, maintained a neutral expression, one hand resting protectively over our growing daughter. "What was your intention then, Mother, when you suggested Kate eat in the bathroom? Because pregnant women don't belong at nice tables." My mother flinched slightly at having her words quoted back to her. "I was concerned for her comfort, obviously. Pregnancy can be so uncomfortable in public settings." "How thoughtful," Kate murmured, her usual patience visibly strained. My mother glanced between us, seemingly realizing her approach wasn't working. She shifted tactics. "Regardless of what was said, surely this financial situation is an overreaction. Your father's business reputation is suffering. Amanda's children are facing potential removal from their schools. Is that really what you want, to punish innocent children?" "No one is being punished," I replied evenly. "The trust covers educational expenses for Amanda's children. What it doesn't cover is maintaining a false image of wealth that doesn't exist." "But people are talking," my mother insisted. "The Hamilton family is questioning Gregory's position now that certain investments have been withdrawn. Do you have any idea what this is doing to your sister's marriage?" I felt a momentary twinge of concern for Amanda, despite everything. Gregory married Amanda, not her perceived wealth. If their relationship can't survive financial changes, that says more about their marriage than about my decisions. My mother's composure slipped further. "This isn't about just money. It's about our standing in the community. The Harrington name has represented something in Boston for generations. And what exactly has it represented, I asked. Appearances over authenticity, status over kindness, are those values worth preserving? She had no immediate answer. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, I saw my mother genuinely struggling to articulate a defense of the principles that had guided her entire life. Kate, who had been quietly observing our exchange, spoke up unexpectedly. Diane, may I ask you something? What kind of relationship do you hope to have with your granddaughter? The question clearly caught my mother off guard. Well, the traditional grandmother role, I suppose. And what does that look like to you? Kate pressed gently. My mother frowned slightly. Appropriate gifts for birthdays and Christmas, perhaps occasional outings when she's old enough for proper activities. Kate nodded thoughtfully. That sounds very formal. Is that the relationship you had with your grandmother? Of course not, my mother replied automatically. My grandmother lived with us. She read to me every night, taught me to bake, told me stories about our family history. A fleeting softness crossed her features before she caught herself. But times were different then. Families were different. Families are what we make them, Kate said simply. The question isn't whether you'll have a relationship with our daughter, but what kind of relationship you want. One based on genuine connection, or one limited to appropriate appearances on designated occasions. My mother looked genuinely perplexed, as if this perspective had never occurred to her. I watched her calculating, recalibrating her approach yet again. I suppose I hadn't considered... She began, then stopped herself. The vulnerability disappeared as quickly as it had emerged. This emotional manipulation is beside the point. The issue at hand is the financial arrangement that Lillian has unilaterally terminated. And there it was. Despite the momentary glimpse of something more authentic, she had retreated to familiar territory, transactional relationships and financial concerns. There is no arrangement to discuss, I stated firmly. The trust is established with clear parameters. Beyond that, any relationship we have going forward will be based on mutual respect, not financial dependence. My mother stood abruptly. I see this visit was premature. You're still being unreasonable. No, Mother. For the first time, I'm being completely reasonable. I'm establishing healthy boundaries that should have existed all along. As she gathered her purse, a final desperate tactic emerged. Your father is not well, you know. The stress of this situation has affected his health. The emotional manipulation was so transparent that it almost seemed desperate. If father has health concerns, the trust covers medical expenses. You can contact my attorney about that. With no further strategies available, my mother moved toward the door. Before leaving, she turned back, her gaze falling on Kate's pregnant form. I hope you're satisfied, she said coldly. You've successfully turned my daughter against her family. Kate met her gaze steadily. Diane, I've only ever encouraged Lillian to maintain her relationship with you. But I also believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, including your daughter and your granddaughter. When the door closed behind my mother, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Kate reached for my hand. Are you okay? I sat beside her, emotionally drained. Yes, actually. For the first time, I feel like I said what needed to be said instead of what would keep the peace. Your mother might never change, Kate warned gently. I know, but I have, and that's what matters. The next contact came from a more unexpected source. 3 days later, my father called my direct office line, bypassing my assistants and the screening process I had established. Something about this direct approach led me to accept the call. Lillian? He said simply, his voice sounding older and less certain than the authoritative tone I'd grown up with. I'd like to meet with you. Alone. Not about money. I hesitated, wary of another manipulation attempt. What about then? There was a long pause before he answered. About making amends, if that's possible. The vulnerability in his voice, so unfamiliar from my stoic father, convinced me to agree to a brief meeting at a neutral coffee shop halfway between our homes. He arrived alone as promised, dressed more casually than I could remember seeing him in years. Without the expensive suit that had been his uniform throughout my childhood, he seemed smaller, somehow more human. Thank you for meeting me, he began awkwardly, turning his coffee cup in circles rather than making eye contact. I waited, giving him space to continue, rather than filling the silence, as I might have done in the past. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he finally continued, about the kind of father I've been, the kind of man I've been. I'm not proud of what I see. The raw honesty was so unexpected that I found myself without a ready response. When my business began to fail, he continued, I told myself I was protecting your mother and Amanda by not telling them. But really, I was protecting my own pride. Then when you offered help, I told myself it was temporary, that I'd turn things around. But years passed and I just kept taking, without ever acknowledging what you were giving. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, not unkindly. He finally looked up, meeting my eyes directly. Because losing the money made me realize what else I've lost. My integrity, my daughter's respect, the chance to know my granddaughter. He swallowed hard. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want you to know I'm getting help. Therapy, something your mother would consider a sign of weakness, but I should have done years ago. The mention of therapy from my stoic traditional father shocked me more than almost anything else about our current situation. That's good. I managed, unsure how to respond to this version of my father I had never seen before. I don't agree with how your mother and Amanda have handled this, he continued. The manipulation, the refusal to acknowledge their part in what happened. I want to do better if you'll give me the chance. I studied him carefully, looking for signs of the calculation and insincerity I'd seen in my mother's visit. Instead, I saw only tiredness and genuine regret. I can't promise anything, I said honestly. Too much has happened, but I'm willing to consider a fresh start with clear boundaries. He nodded, seeming to understand that this qualified openness was the most I could offer. And Kate, your daughter, would you consider allowing me to know them too? That depends entirely on your behavior, I answered. Kate has shown incredible grace throughout this situation. She deserves nothing but respect from anyone who wants to be in our lives. I understand, he said simply. I'd like the opportunity to show that respect if you'll permit it. As our meeting concluded, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, crudely wrapped package. I made this for the baby. It's not much, but... I opened it carefully to find a small wooden toy hand carved with surprising skill. I didn't know you could carve. Something I learnt from my own grandfather, he admitted. I haven't done it in decades, but I've had some time on my hands lately. The self-deprecating humour was yet another side of him I'd rarely seen. I accepted the gift with a tentative smile. Thank you, I'll show it to Kate. We parted with no dramatic reconciliation, no promises beyond continued communication. But as I watched him walk away, shoulders slightly stooped, but carrying himself with a different kind of dignity than the artificial one I'd grown up observing, I felt the first tentative hope that at least one relationship in my family might eventually heal. In the soft morning light of a late April day, Kate gave birth to our daughter after 14 hours of labour. I held her hand through every contraction, watched in awe as she demonstrated strength I could barely comprehend, and cried openly when our daughter finally arrived pink and perfect, and loudly announcing her presence in the world. She has your determination, Kate whispered exhaustedly, gazing down at our swaddled newborn. Look at that strong grip. Our daughter Emma Grace Harrington weighed 7 pounds and 3 ounces. Her tiny fingers wrapped around my index finger with surprising strength, and her dark blue newborn eyes held mysteries and possibilities I could hardly fathom. The hospital room filled with flowers from Kate's colleagues and my close friends. My assistant Meredith brought homemade cookies and practical gifts for the new parents' premium coffee dry shampoo and a food delivery service subscription. These gestures of genuine care highlighted the contrast with my biological family's response. Amanda sent an impersonal text message with the wrong date of birth. My mother had her assistant deliver an ostentatious silver baby spoon from Tiffany's with a card signed Grandmother Harrington, rather than any personal message. Both gestures felt like obligation rather than celebration. My father, however, surprised us again. He arrived alone on our second day in the hospital, carrying not an expensive gift, but a small pot of yellow daisies and a children's book. May I come in? He asked tentatively, standing in the doorway, rather than assuming welcome. Kate, cradling Emma, nodded with the generosity of a spirit that continually amazed me. Of course, Richard. Come meet your granddaughter. He approached with uncharacteristic hesitation, his eyes fixed on the tiny bundle in Kate's arms. She's beautiful, he said softly. She has your eyes, Lillian, the same shape. Would you like to hold her? Kate offered. The emotion that crossed my father's face at this simple invitation was transformative. He sat carefully in the visitor's chair, and with more gentleness than I had ever associated with him, accepted Emma into his arms. His hands, once commanding boardrooms and signing million-dollar contracts, trembled slightly as they supported her head. Hello, Emma, he whispered. I'm your grandfather. I have so much to learn about being a good one, but I promise to try. The simple sincerity of this pledge, spoken not for our benefit, but directly to his granddaughter, affected me deeply. In that moment, I glimpsed the father he might have been, might still become. 2 months later, our lives had settled into the chaotic new rhythm that comes with a newborn. Sleep became a precious commodity. Our home transformed with the addition of baby equipment in every room. Emma grew and changed daily, each tiny development a miracle we celebrated together. The wider family situation evolved in its own way. Amanda, faced with the reality of her reduced circumstances, had thrown a public tantrum at her country club when her membership was revoked, resulting in embarrassing social media coverage that completed her fall from social grace. She still blamed me entirely, sending occasional bitter messages that I largely ignored. My mother maintained formal distant contact, sending appropriate gifts on appropriate occasions, but making no genuine effort to know Emma or repair our relationship. She had downsized from the family estate to a still respectable condominium, maintaining as many appearances as possible while resentfully adjusting to her new financial reality. My father, however, continued his surprising journey toward authentic connection. He visited once a week, always calling ahead rather than assuming welcome, always bringing something small and thoughtful rather than expensive. He sat patiently holding Emma, talking to her about simple things, the birds outside the window, the changing seasons, family stories I had never heard before. During one such visit, as Kate prepared dinner and I watched my father gently rocking Emma to sleep, he looked up with unexpected seriousness. "I've been thinking about setting up a small woodworking shop," he said quietly, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. "Nothing fancy, just enough to make toys, maybe some furniture eventually." "That sounds nice," I replied, surprised by this development. "As a hobby?" "More than that, actually." He seemed almost embarrassed. "I've been taking classes. The instructor thinks I have a knack for it, says my pieces could sell at local craft fairs. Not for much, of course, but..." I realized with sudden clarity what he was saying. "You want to work again, to earn your own way." He nodded, relief evident that I understood. "The trust is generous, more than we deserve, but there's something important about creating value with your own hands, something I lost sight of years ago, playing with numbers on screens and calling it success." As Emma stirred slightly in his arms, he adjusted her blanket with practiced ease that would have been unimaginable a few months ago. "I think I'd like to make her crib when she outgrows the bassinet, if that would be all right with you both." This humble request from the man who had once dismissed my career ambitions as beneath our family's status touched me deeply. "I think she would love that." Later that evening, after my father had gone and Emma was settled for her brief evening sleep before the next feeding, Kate and I sat together on our patio, enjoying the rare moment of quiet. "Your father has changed," Kate observed, her hand finding mine in the gathering darkness. "Yes," I agreed. "It's strange. All those years I wanted his approval, his attention. Now I realize maybe he needed to lose everything to find something more authentic." Kate considered this thoughtfully. "And your mother, Amanda? Do you think they'll ever change too?" I sighed, thinking of my mother's continuing rigidity and my sister's ongoing bitterness. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But I've realized I can't wait for their approval to live my life to be happy with our family." "Our chosen family is pretty amazing," Kate said, smiling at the baby monitor that showed Emma sleeping peacefully. "And it includes your father now, which I wouldn't have predicted." "Life rarely follows the path we expect," I reflected. 6 months ago, I was financially supporting my entire family while they treated us terribly. Now I've stopped enabling their behavior, and the only relationship that's actually improving is with my father, the last person I would have expected to change. The baby monitor lit up with Emma's first stirrings. Kate smiled and stood ready for the next feeding. "People can surprise you if you give them the chance, but they need to do the work themselves." As I watched Kate go inside to tend to our daughter, I thought about the journey we'd taken to this point. The painful dinner at Le Bistro had seemed like an ending, a breaking point beyond repair. Instead, it had become a beginning, a catalyst for change and growth that continued to unfold in unexpected ways. I had learned that sometimes protecting the people you love means establishing firm boundaries, even when those boundaries cause short-term pain. I had discovered that family is defined not by obligation or financial support, but by mutual respect and genuine care. Most importantly, I had realized that creating our own family based on values we truly believed in, rather than appearances we felt pressured to maintain, was the greatest gift we could give our daughter. Emma would grow up knowing she was loved unconditionally. She would learn that respect is earned through actions not demanded through status or financial leverage. she would understand that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into, and that both types of family require ongoing work, honest communication, and genuine acceptance. As I joined Kate and Emma inside embracing the beautiful chaos of our life together, I felt profound gratitude for the painful lesson my family had unintentionally taught me. By showing me how toxic conditional love could be, they had helped me recognize and cherish the authentic love that now filled our home. What have you learned about setting boundaries with family? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for someone you love? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the greatest act of love is having the courage to say enough.